Welcome to the continuing Winemaker series here at Wine of the Month Club, and we have a very special guest from way down below the equator. This is Matt Fowles from Fowles Winery. You guys call it Fowles Winery?
Correct.
Yeah, it's family.
Fowles Wine. Yeah.
So who's in this family winery thing? Is it you? You're the
Yeah, me and my wife. And
your wife.
Yeah,
So
mum and
she's
dad.
the boss.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And your parents are too.
Yeah, they're part of it as well.
And the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've had the chance. Well, he showed me pictures of them crushing the grapes, which is
Indeed.
great
First
stuff.
vintage this year.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah.
You know, I had a winemaker here years ago. His name was Adam Lazar, and he showed a picture of himself stomping grapes at 5.
Yeah, nice.
Holding a glass like this.
Nice.
So she's got a legacy that.
Well, she's one. So
Yeah, so
that's not bad.
That's great. So you had a chance to taste. I think we did the Shiraz, and I think we've done, what else did we do? The Merlot? No, the Cabernet. So customers are really receiving the Australian wines well now, and we were talking off camera a little bit about how the Australian wine industry in America seems to be starting to come back and flow a little bit. What's happening out there?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's interested again. We had a major currency correction, which obviously helps. So,
Big time.
You know, that's a big factor, but there's a lot of excitement back in Australia. You know, some of these corporate winemakers have backed away, so the family winemakers are coming through, and I think you'll see a lot of exciting wines from Australia in the next couple of years.
So we were talking about starting an Australian wine club only, so the wines should just be Australian, so look for that. In fact, you guys were just talking about there's a Penfolds here.
Yeah, look at this, 1990 Canunga Hill.
Semillon Chard, right?
Yeah.
So very popular wine at the time. So you were showing me some pictures of the property there, and my comment was, "Wow, it looks prehistoric." And you said, "Yeah, it's like 400 million years." What was it?
Yeah, that's right. It's 440 million years old.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
Australia's absolutely ancient, and some of the hills that we sit on, right up high, about 500 metres above sea level, are some of the most ancient hills.
It's beautiful, and the pictures. It's not LA, that's for sure. I mean, I was jealous to see the streams and the boulders and, and the wild game, and so one of the things that you brought with us, we brought 2 brands with us. You brought Farm to Table, which is a great name and a great brand, and then you brought Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind the 2 brands, and we'll get a tasting of them.
Well, look, the Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch came from an interest I have in hunting, and ethical hunting, I might add. So we hunt for the table, and you know, in Australia we have a lot of introduced animals, and we're compelled to control these animals because it's a delicate ecosystem down there.
Yes.
And instead of just poisoning them, we shoot them and eat them. And when you eat wild game, it has a very different texture and intensity. So we thought we'd make a wine to better suit game, and that's what the Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch is all about.
So, you know, there used to be there's a restaurant here, it's called Parkway Grill, and they have a game meat of the week that they serve, and they have venison, buffalo, whatever it is. So when the Farm to Table is not meant for that, or it is?
Farm to Table is kind of full circle. So we're also sheep farmers, and we look at the qualities of our lamb very closely, and the texture of farm meat's very different to wild game.
Yes.
So it's higher fat, looser fibre, a softer texture, and with that you can take more fruit in a wine, more oak and fruit derived tannin in the wine. So we're looking for quite a different flavour profile. But this is acid fresh, which is great with food. This is all natural acid in our region because we're a very cool climate.
So I like this. I love this wine. It departs from the grapefruit, from the herbs. It's got a full body. It's got a wonderful sort of, I don't know, lychee nut character in the middle. But tell me about the soil then. This is so prehistoric. What is this growing in that gets this?
Yeah, so this is this ancient granite soil. And what's happened over all those millions of years, it's gradually weathered down back to bedrock. And then it's just a nutrient poor sandy loam. So it won't hold water, and there's very little nutrient. And with that, the vines have to struggle. So they build this intensity in the
So they got to dig deeper to go get what they need.
Bingo, yeah. And you won't get big canopies from them. The fruit doesn't blow up, so you've got small, intense berries, and then this natural acid.
So with that granite then, does that make the vineyard warmer, hold the heat, and is that what it's doing?
Well, it's a good point, and yeah, it does, but actually in our region we're inland, so you get this large diurnal shift. You know, you get higher temperatures during the day, and then much lower at night. So typically in vintage, you know, you're sweating out in the vineyard during the day, and then it's jacket on at night. You know, it's
wow,
cool.
That's pretty interesting. We got to do the other white, right? So now you've gone to screw caps. So I had to bring this up because so much of everybody below the equator is doing that. I mean, it's hard to even find a New Zealand wine that has a cork anywhere.
Yeah.
What's the general shift in Australia then for that?
Yeah, so my view is, I got to get the wine to you guys in the best condition I can, and I've looked at the science, and I believe screw cap does that. So it's not actually a convenience thing for me. It's about pristine wine, and so I think the science is compelling, and that's what we've done. And then, of course, the convenience. We were running corks and caps together, and we found ourselves reaching for the cap bottle. So if we're going to do it, then perhaps other people will too.
I had one experience, and it's only happened once in all the wines I've tasted, where somebody bottled it both, and so they brought me both a Chardonnay, both stainless steel Chard that had been capped with screw cap and with cork, and they were different.
Yeah,
I'd say clearly the screw cap was fresher.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say one was better than the other necessarily, but clearly it had changed.
Yeah, and for this style of wines as well, particularly these wines we call our food wines blended to match with food. We want that primary aroma, and if you have cork, sometimes that can dissipate harder.
Definitely.
So yeah, we want that fresh primary.
Well, this is a classic example. You get to taste the Chardonnay, which is great because we don't do that in California as much. Mm-hmm. And there's wonderful acid in the back of this.
Absolutely,
and that's for this game meat sort of.
Totally. So acid is, I think, the key building block in food and wine matching. It refreshes your palate, brings out ingredients. So that's an important feature. But this is a really interesting wine because it's 100% barrel fermented, all French, wild yeast. It's a real deal.
I love the wild yeast part.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to somebody. Well, we used to buy grape juice here, made from wine grapes, and the problem wasn't, the problem the winemaker was having was keeping it from fermenting.
Yeah, right.
Right, because you had to stop it before it started, but the wild yeast was so prevalent that it wanted to ferment, right?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one because, once you introduce commercial yeast into the winery, that tends to dominate the population. So we actually took the ferments out into the vineyard, but we had to figure out a way to chill it because if it's out in the, Australian country like California, you've got to figure out a way to chill it. So what we did is we built flotation around the fruit bin, put it in our dam, so that the water in the dam regulated the temperature of the ferment.
That's wild.
Which was cool. And it was wild because there was no commercial yeast. There you go.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So the wild yeast does change the way the wine. Once I learned that some of these yeasts will survival of the fittest. They'll take over the other yeast. Causes. Tell me about this Pinot Noir.
So your viewers will notice that Sauvignon Blanc Pinot from Australia, you don't see a lot of it here.
No.
It's a feature of our cool climate, and this Pinot is a good example of that. So, we share latitudinal pedigree with New Zealand. We're the southernmost part of Australia, so it's actually very cool where we are. Actually, only an hour from our snowfield, so we get flurries of snow in winter. I left -2 in Australia.
That's
I don't know
amazing.
what it is here, but it's like a big difference. So, Pinot likes cool climates. It likes our part of the world, reliable, stable climate. And I think this is a great example of cool climate Pinot.
It's what I love about Pinot that seems to be predominantly different about other grapes is it really sucks up the terroir. So it's such a variety from Burgundy to Santa Barbara here. You get the strawberry and fruit, and then you go to the Russian River and you get this deeper wine. So very expressive of where it's been grown.
Absolutely.
The minerality of it is really great.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big point for all our wines. Minerality, acid fresh, natural acid in our case. So, but yeah, I think that's a really lovely cool climate Pinot.
So vineyards for these two different brands, are they the same vineyards or just different parts of the
Yeah, the thing about our region is we get the difference in style from different blocks. So, our soil is actually remarkably even because it's weathered back to bedrock.
Yes.
But so we have both sides of the hill, and so the warmer years we'll use the warmer blocks in our farm to table. We want that fleshier fruit, and with ladies who shoot their lunch, we'll typically take it from the cooler blocks.
So it's not necessarily
It's
based on the weather and
correct weather. We have 2 different vineyards, over 300 acres of vines, and so there's some differences there. Yeah, 12 varieties, all sorts of oddballs like Arnace and Vermentine.
Are you bringing them all 12 wines to America yet, or just a handful?
That's up to you, sir.
Yeah, of course. That's right. No, we're not doing that.
No, okay, right. So ladies who shoot their lunch
difference
Shiraz.
in the nose.
Yeah.
Just the nose is different.
Bingo. And this is I think a great example of where Australian Shiraz is heading. And you'll see more and more examples of like this from in the next couple of years. But This is all about primary aroma and a silkiness of texture.
Yeah, wow, it's such a departure from what you'd expect.
Bingo.
I wasn't expecting at all. I love it.
And great with food, and that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, I can see this as game meats for sure, right? But it's void of that gaminess in it. It's got a wonderful, acidic. Even in the nose, you get that acid, right? Almost.
It's got a really clean core, but one of the little layers of interest we have in there is we age this in 150-year-old English oak casks. So big enough that I can stand up in them.
That is wild.
It is, and they used to be used for port, and we repurposed them for wine, and it just adds this lovely savoury layer, which is really, really interesting.
This has been a great education on Australian wines. Hope we have you back one of these days. What's the rest of your trip like out here?
Oh, it's a bit all over the place. Illinois, Texas, New York,
Wow.
New Jersey. We'll float around.
Well, enjoy this wonderful heat we have in SoCal this weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.